Some places are abandoned slowly. A shop closes, a school loses its last students, a road becomes too quiet, grass grows through the cracks, windows break, names disappear from maps. But other places are abandoned almost all at once. A warning comes too late, the ground begins to move, the air becomes unsafe, a volcano wakes up, a reactor explodes, a war reaches the streets. And suddenly, an ordinary town becomes a place people are told never to return to. Across the world, there are towns that still look like they are waiting. Houses with sand inside the rooms, apartment blocks facing an empty sea, churches without congregations, roads that lead nowhere, schools where the silence feels heavier than the ruins. These are not just abandoned places, they are warnings. Tonight, on Dark Atlas, we are looking at 9 ghost towns abandoned for terrifying reasons.
In the Namib Desert, there is a town where the rooms are filling with sand. It enters through broken windows, it climbs staircases, it covers floors where people once walked in polished shoes. In some houses, the dunes have risen so high that doorways look like they lead into another world. This is Kolmanskop. At first glance, it almost looks staged, a photographer's dream, German-style buildings standing in the middle of one of the oldest deserts on Earth, sunlight cutting through empty rooms, wallpaper peeling above waves of sand. But Kolmanskop was not built as a ruin, it was built because of diamonds. In the early 20th century, diamond discoveries in this part of Namibia created a sudden rush of wealth. A town appeared in the desert, not as a rough camp, but as a small, strange pocket of European comfort. There was a hospital, a ballroom, a school, a theater, and houses that seemed almost impossible in such a dry and isolated place. For a time, Kolmanskop was a symbol of fortune. Then the fortune moved away. As richer diamond fields were discovered farther south, the town began to lose its reason to exist. The desert, which had always been waiting at the edges, slowly came back. Kolmanskop was not destroyed in a single disaster. No siren sounded, no evacuation order emptied the streets overnight. Its terror is quieter than that. It is the terror of realizing that a place built on extraction can vanish the moment the ground stops giving. Today, the town is a reminder that the desert does not need to attack, it only needs time. The sand does not hurry, it waits, it enters, it covers everything.
High above the badlands of southern Italy, an empty medieval town clings to a ridge. From a distance, Craco looks almost unreal, a stone settlement rising from a landscape of pale clay hills, ravines, and eroded slopes. It looks like a fortress, a place built to survive centuries. And in many ways, it did. Craco stood through wars, disease, poverty, and isolation. Its position was chosen for defense. High ground meant safety from invaders. From the hilltop, people could see danger before it arrived. But the danger that finally emptied Craco did not come from the horizon. It came from beneath the town. The surrounding landscape is shaped by erosion. The slopes are unstable in places. Over time, landslides and ground movement made life increasingly difficult and dangerous. Buildings cracked, streets shifted. The old town became harder to protect, harder to repair, and harder to trust. In the 20th century, residents began to leave. Some were moved to safer ground. Later earthquakes and continuing instability helped turn the historic center into a place no longer fit for normal life. What makes Craco unsettling is not that it collapsed completely. It is that it still stands. The walls remain. The tower remains. The stone streets still climb the hill. But the human rhythm is gone. No market noise. No voices at windows. No footsteps returning home at sunset. Craco is not a city swallowed by the earth in one dramatic moment. It is a city slowly betrayed by the ground it was built on. For a documentary map, Craco is a perfect warning. A place can look solid for hundreds of years and still be losing its battle with geology, one crack at a time. Off the coast of Nagasaki, a dark shape rises from the sea. From above, it looks less like an island and more like a battleship, a wall of concrete, apartment blocks, empty windows, a seawall holding back the waves. This is Hashima Island, also known as Gunkanjima or Battleship Island. For decades, Hashima was one of the most densely packed industrial communities on Earth. People lived on a tiny island built around undersea coal mines. The mine shafts reached below the ocean floor. The buildings rose upward because there was almost nowhere else to go. Life here was compressed. Families lived in concrete apartments. Children went to school above the mines. Workers descended into hot, humid tunnels beneath the sea. Around them, typhoons battered the seawalls, and waves broke against the island like it was a ship that could never leave port. Hashima was not abandoned because of a natural disaster. It was abandoned because the world changed. Coal declined. The mine closed in 1974. Within a short time, the island was emptied. But the story of Hashima is not only industrial decline. Its history is also sensitive and contested because of forced labor connected to Japan's wartime industrial system. For many people, the ruins are not just dramatic concrete shapes, they are part of a much darker human memory. That is why Hashima needs to be shown carefully, not as a haunted amusement park, not as a simple, creepy island. It is a place where architecture, industry, isolation, and history all press together. Today, the island is partly accessible through controlled tours, but much of it remains dangerous because the buildings are decaying. Concrete cracks, metal rusts, stairways weaken. The city that once rose from the sea is now being taken apart by salt, storms, and time. Hashima feels like the future after people leave. A man-made island, built for industry, left to face the ocean alone. Number 6. Wittenoom, Australia. Some ghost towns are dangerous because of what you can see: a collapsed building, a burning road, a volcanic slope, a radioactive sign. Wittenoom is different. Its danger can be invisible. In the Pilbara region of Western Australia, Wittenoom was once a mining town built around blue asbestos. For years, people worked, lived, and raised families near material that would later become infamous for its deadly health effects. Blue asbestos, also known as crocidolite, was mined in the area for decades. Fibers from asbestos can be extremely hazardous when inhaled. Under certain conditions, they can remain in dust, soil, tailings, and old mining areas, and they can be disturbed by wind, water, walking, or driving. That is what makes Wittenoom so disturbing. The landscape does not always scream danger. There are roads, hills, old remains of a former town, open space beneath a huge Australian sky. But the official warnings are serious.
The area has been described as contaminated, and authorities have strongly advised against travel through Wittenoom and surrounding areas. This is not the cinematic danger of a volcano or a burning street. It is the kind of danger that turns dust into a threat. Wittenoom was eventually removed from official status as a town. Services disappeared. The name was taken off maps and road signs in some contexts. What remained was not a typical ghost town for tourists to explore freely, but a contaminated landscape with a long legacy of illness, loss, and unresolved responsibility. In a place like Wittenoom, the horror is not in the ruin, it is in the air. And sometimes, the most frightening abandoned places are the ones that look almost ordinary.
Number 5. Plymouth, Montserrat. In the Caribbean, there is a capital city buried by a volcano. Plymouth was once the center of Montserrat. It had government buildings, shops, homes, roads, and a port. It was not a remote mining camp or a forgotten village. It was the heart of the island. Then the Soufriere Hills volcano began to erupt. In the 1990s, volcanic activity changed Montserrat forever. Ash fell. Pyroclastic flows and lahars moved down the slopes. Under certain conditions, these flows can be extremely fast and devastating, carrying hot gas, rock, mud, and debris into areas below. Plymouth was in the wrong place. The city was evacuated. Then it was damaged, buried, and effectively abandoned. Large parts of the southern area of Montserrat became part of an exclusion zone. What remains today has often been called a Caribbean Pompeii. Roofs sit beneath volcanic debris. Streets disappear under gray layers. Buildings stand half-buried, as if the city sank into ash rather than water. Plymouth is especially powerful because of the contrast. A Caribbean island is usually imagined through beaches, sunlight, and music. Plymouth shows the other side of island geography, the side where paradise can sit in the shadow of a mountain that is not finished being dangerous. The volcano did not only destroy buildings, it rearranged the island's future. People had to rebuild lives elsewhere. A new center of government developed outside the old capital. The map of Montserrat changed because the land itself changed. And that is why Plymouth belongs in Dark Atlas. It reminds us that some cities do not die because people fail. They die because the earth moves on without them. Number 4. Centralia, Pennsylvania, United States. There is a town in Pennsylvania where the fire is under the ground. Centralia was once a coal town. Streets, homes, churches, and families stood above a landscape shaped by mining. Like many towns in the region, its life was tied to what lay beneath it. Then, in 1962, a fire began in or near the abandoned mine system below the town. The exact details of the beginning have been debated, but the result is not. The fire spread into underground coal seams, and it kept burning. For years, people in Centralia lived above a hidden disaster. Steam rose from cracks, the ground became unstable in some areas, dangerous gases could escape. Sinkholes became a frightening possibility. One of the most famous incidents involved a young boy who nearly disappeared into a sudden hole that opened in the ground. That moment helped the outside world understand that Centralia was not just a town with a strange local problem. It was a town sitting above a slow underground inferno. Attempts were made to control the fire, but the problem proved extremely difficult. Eventually, most residents were relocated, houses demolished, streets emptied. The town's population collapsed. What makes Centralia so haunting is that the disaster is still happening. There is no single ruin to point to and say, this is where it ended. The ending has been stretching across decades.
The fire below Centralia is not a visible wall of flames, it is more like a geological curse created by human industry. Coal, air, tunnels, heat, and time combined into something almost impossible to undo. Today, Centralia is one of America's most famous ghost towns, but the most important part of its story is not the empty streets. It is the idea that the ground under a normal town can become unknowable. You can build houses above it, you can pave roads over it, you can live your whole life trusting it, and then, one day, the earth opens.
Number 3. Varosha, Cyprus. There are ghost towns made by nature, and then there are ghost towns made by borders. Varosha was once one of the most glamorous resort districts in the Mediterranean. In the early 1970s, its hotels faced blue water and wide beaches. Tourists came for sun, luxury, and modern seaside life. New buildings rose quickly. The future looked expensive and bright. Then, in 1974, conflict changed everything. During the events surrounding the division of Cyprus, Varosha's residents fled. The area came under military control and was fenced off. For decades, much of it remained sealed, decaying behind barriers, while the political question around it remained unresolved. This is why Varosha feels different from many abandoned towns. It was not emptied because the land failed. It was not abandoned because the mine closed. It was left behind because history split the island and a city fell into the space between political realities. Hotels that once promised sea views became hollow shells. Apartment blocks faced the beach with broken windows. Roads that had been built for tourists became corridors of silence. In recent years, parts of Varosha have been opened in limited ways, but its status remains sensitive and controversial. International resolutions and political disputes still shape the story of the place. For the people who left, Varosha is not simply a dark tourism location. It is a memory of homes, businesses, and lives interrupted. That is the part a documentary should never forget. The most disturbing thing about Varosha is not that it looks abandoned, it is that it looks paused, as if a resort city was frozen in the middle of a summer that never came back. Number 2. Pripyat, Ukraine. Pripyat was built for the future. It was a young city, a Soviet city, a city of apartment blocks, schools, sports facilities, cultural buildings, and families connected to the nearby Chernobyl nuclear power plant. It was not ancient. It was not supposed to become a ruin. It was meant to represent progress. Then, on April 26, 1986, reactor number 4 at Chernobyl exploded. The disaster released radioactive material into the environment. At first, many people in Pripyat did not fully understand what had happened. The city was close to the plant, but life did not stop instantly. People looked toward the glow. Children played. Buses had not yet arrived. The evacuation came the next day. Residents were told to take essential belongings because the evacuation might be temporary, but for most of them, there would be no return to normal life in Pripyat. That is one reason the city feels so haunting today. It was not emptied gradually, it was interrupted. Classrooms still show traces of lessons. Apartments still suggest ordinary routines. The famous amusement park, often shown as a symbol of the city, became part of a landscape where the future never opened the way it was meant to. Pripyat became part of the Chernobyl exclusion zone, a restricted area shaped by contamination, scientific monitoring, and the long aftermath of a nuclear accident. In some places, radiation levels can still be dangerous, and access has depended on permits, conditions, and broader security realities. But Pripyat is not only a story about radiation, it is a story about trust. People trusted the city, they trusted the technology, they trusted that warnings would come in time,
They trusted that home would still be home. The most terrifying ghost towns are not always the oldest. Sometimes they are the ones modernity created with confidence and then abandoned in a single weekend. Pripyat is not just a ruin of the Soviet Union, it is a monument to the moment when the invisible became more powerful than the visible.
Number 1. Oradour-sur-Glane, France. The final place on this list is not terrifying because of geology. It is not abandoned because of radiation, asbestos, fire, or ash. It is terrifying because of what people did there. Oradour-sur-Glane was a village in west-central France. Before 1944, it was an ordinary rural community. There were homes, shops, a church, a school, and daily life. Then, on June 10, 1944, during the Second World War, the village was destroyed by Waffen SS troops. Hundreds of civilians were killed. The buildings were burned. The old village was left in ruins. After the war, a new village was built nearby, but the original Oradour-sur-Glane was preserved as a memorial. That decision is what makes it one of the most powerful abandoned places in the world. The ruins were not left because no one cared.
They were left because people needed to remember. Today, the old village still contains the remains of streets, walls, vehicles, and everyday objects. They are not props. They are not decorations for a ghost story. They are evidence of a community that was violently erased. This is the place where the dark atlas tone must become quiet, because Oradour is not a place for exaggerated horror. It is a place for silence. Many ghost towns make us think about nature, industry, or time. Oradour forces us to think about human cruelty and about the responsibility of memory. The terrifying reason it was abandoned is not hidden underground. It is not dissolved in the air. It is written into the stones and the empty streets. Some places are abandoned because people cannot live there anymore. Oradour was left abandoned so the world would not be allowed to forget why.
Ghost towns are often described as places where time stopped, but that is not exactly true. Time does not stop in these places. It keeps working. Sand fills the houses of Kolmanskop. Cracks widen in Craco. Salt eats the concrete of Hashima. Dust moves through Wittenoom. Ash covers Plymouth. Fire burns beneath Centralia. Politics hangs over Varosha. Forest grows through Pripyat. Memory remains in Oradour. What stops is the human routine, the morning commute, the school bell, the open shop, the voices from the street, the feeling that tomorrow will look almost like today. Every abandoned town has a final, ordinary day. Most people living through it do not know it is final. That is what makes these places so powerful. They are not just ruins, they are reminders that geography, industry, politics, and human violence can change the meaning of home forever. This is Dark Atlas, and some places on the map are not empty because they were forgotten. They are empty because they remember too much.